The day after I brought my newborn daughter home from a C-section, my own mother grabbed me by the hair and physically threw me out of the house. Why? Because my sister needed my room for her baby. But my husband, he turned their entire world into rubble. My name is Wendy, and what I'm about to tell you happened just 6 months ago. But it still feels like a nightmare I haven't woken up from. For years, I believed I was the black sheep of my family, overshadowed by my younger sister, Cheryl. But I never imagined their favoritism would lead to such monstrous cruelty. I was 26, happily married to my amazing husband Mitchell for 3 years. We'd struggled for 2 long years to conceive, so when I finally got pregnant, we were over the moon. Even my parents, Suzanne and Philip, seemed happy, or so I thought. Cheryl, 3 years younger than me, had always been their golden child. But surely a grandchild would unite us, right? I was so wrong. My pregnancy was incredibly difficult. I developed gestational diabetes, and we had to plan a C-section at 38 weeks. Our beautiful daughter, Paige, arrived healthy, but the surgery left me in agonizing pain, barely able to move. Mitchell, bless his heart, had used up all his vacation time caring for me during my difficult bedridden pregnancy, so he had to go back to work almost immediately. Recovering from major surgery, while caring for a newborn alone wasn't an option. So we made arrangements for me to stay at my parents' 4-bedroom house for a week in my old room. They had enthusiastically agreed months earlier, promising to dote on their first grandchild. That first red flag should have been obvious the moment we arrived home from the hospital. Instead of a warm welcome, my mother, Suzanne, barely glanced at little Paige. Her first words were a complaint about how the baby's crying would disturb her sleep. My father, Philip, just grunted from his recliner, eyes glued to the TV. I was too exhausted, too sore, and too desperate for help to truly process their coldness. I tried to just brush it off. That first night was a blur of struggling to breastfeed. Every movement sending shooting pain through my abdomen. Changing Paige's diaper felt like climbing a mountain. I could barely get out of bed. The next morning, that's when my entire world went to hell. I was in bed trying to get Paige to latch for her morning feeding, when my mother burst into the room, no knock, no warning. She was already dressed, that determined, chilling look on her face I'd learned to fear as a child. "Wendy, you need to pack your things," she announced, her voice like ice. "Cheryl's coming over with baby Jaden today, and she needs this room more than you do." I stared at her, utterly bewildered, thinking I must have misheard. "What? Mom, I just had surgery yesterday. I can barely move," she snapped, her words cutting like a knife. "You're moving fine. I've seen you walking around. Stop your pathetic whining and get out." Felt like I'd been slapped. "Mom, please," I pleaded, tears welling up. "Let me at least rest so I can move properly." That's when she did something I will never ever forget. She grabbed a handful of my hair, yanking my head back so her face was inches from mine. "You're moving fine. Now pack your bag and stop your pathetic whining and get out." The pain from her grip, combined with the searing agony in my abdomen from the sudden movement, made me cry out. Little Paige, sensing my distress, started wailing. From downstairs, my father's voice, cold and dismissive, echoed, "Suzanne, please get her out of here. It's making me uncomfortable." Uncomfortable? My own father, the man who'd read me bedtime stories and taught me to ride a bike, couldn't even look at me or his newborn granddaughter. "You heard your father," my mother said, releasing my hair with a shove. "Cheryl will be here in an hour with Jaden. He's 6 weeks old, and she needs the quiet and space to recover properly." "But Mom," I sobbed, tears streaming down my face, "I just had major surgery. Cheryl had a natural birth 6 weeks ago. I literally cannot." "I don't want to hear it," she shrieked, her voice dripping with venom. "Cheryl has always been more responsible than you. She married Gregory right after college, got her degree, and now she's given us a beautiful grandson. You waited until you were 26 to get married, and now you're acting like you're dying from a simple procedure." The favoritism wasn't new, but this level of cruelty? It was a gut punch. I always knew Cheryl was the favorite, but to be thrown out with a newborn the day after surgery? It was unimaginable. With shaking hands and blurred vision, I started packing Paige's things. Every single movement was pure agony. Bending over to pick up a tiny onesie sent sharp pains through my incision. I had to stop every few minutes, gasping for breath. My mother just stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching my torment without offering a single shred of help. This is ridiculous, I choked out, making one last attempt. I'm your daughter too. I just need a few more days to heal. Cheryl is coming with Jaden and that's final, she stated, cold as stone. She called last night saying she was struggling and needed help. Unlike you, she doesn't complain about every little thing. I wanted to scream that I hadn't complained about anything, that I'd been nothing but grateful for their supposed help, but I was too exhausted, too broken, and too much in pain to argue. As I finished packing, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Cheryl had arrived. I managed to get Paige in her car seat and gather our bags. Walking down those stairs was excruciating. I gripped the railing, taking each step slowly, feeling my incision pull with every agonizing movement. Cheryl was in the living room holding her son Jaden, chatting happily with my parents as if nothing was wrong. She looked up as I struggled down, Paige in my arms, our bags falling off my shoulders. "Oh good. You're leaving," she said, a satisfied smirk playing on her lips. "Finally, I can have the room all to myself without your drama." Drama? I stopped dead in my tracks. "Cheryl, I just had surgery." She rolled her eyes, a gesture I knew too well. "Please, you're being so dramatic about a simple C-section. I had Jaden naturally and I'm fine. You're just milking it for attention like you always do." There I stood, holding my crying newborn, bag slipping, my surgical incision burning, watching my entire family treat me like I was nothing more than an inconvenient piece of garbage. "I'm calling Mitchell," I whispered, my voice thick with tears. "Good," my father grunted, not even looking up from his newspaper. "Maybe he can talk some sense into you." I stepped outside into the cold morning air, Paige still crying in my arms. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial Mitchell's number. "Hey honey," he answered, his voice cheerfully unaware. "How's the first night going?" I broke down. Sobs tore through me as I tried to explain what had just happened. There was a long, terrifying silence on the other end. "They did what?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "They threw us out, Mitchell. Cheryl needs the room more than me." "I'm coming to get you right now," he said, his voice now a low growl. "Don't move." 20 minutes later, Mitchell's car screeched into the driveway. He jumped out and saw me on the front steps, holding Paige, sobbing, surrounded by our hastily packed bags. The look on his face was something I'd never seen before. Pure, unadulterated rage. He walked up to me, his gaze softening only when he gently took Paige from my arms. "Are you okay? How's your incision?" "It hurts so bad," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. "I think I might have torn something when Mom grabbed my hair." Mitchell's jaw clenched, a muscle working furiously. He carefully helped me into the car, settled Paige into her car seat, and loaded our bags. Then he did something I didn't expect. He walked straight to the front door and knocked. My mother opened it, looking annoyed. "What do you want?" "I want to talk to you and Philip." "Now. We're busy with Cheryl and the baby now." She tried to dismiss him. "Now," Mitchell repeated, his voice deadly calm. Something in his tone made her step aside. Mitchell strode into the living room where my parents and Cheryl were sitting. "So," he began, his voice eerily quiet, "you threw out your daughter and granddaughter the day after major surgery." "Now see here, Mitchell," my father started, puffing out his chest. "No, you see here, Philip." Mitchell's voice exploded, filling the room. "Your daughter just had her abdomen cut open to bring your granddaughter into the world. She can barely walk, and you threw her out like garbage." "Cheryl needed the room more," my mother said defensively, trying to sound reasonable. "Cheryl," Mitchell said, turning his piercing gaze to my sister, "had a natural birth 6 weeks ago. She's been home recovering this entire time. Wendy had surgery yesterday." "It's not that big of a deal," Cheryl said, bouncing Jaden on her knee, rolling her eyes again. "She's being dramatic." That's when Mitchell did something that surprised everyone, including me. He pulled out his phone and started recording. "I want you to say that again," he said to Cheryl, his voice dangerously low. "I want you to tell me exactly why you think your sister, who had major surgery yesterday, is being dramatic." "Mitchell, put that phone away," my mother snapped, lunging for it. "No," he said, stepping back, holding the phone steady. "I want this on record." I want everyone to see what kind of people you truly are. My father stood up, his face red with fury. You need to leave. Oh, I'm leaving, Mitchell said, his eyes burning with righteous anger. But first I want to make sure we're all clear on what happened here. Suzanne, you grabbed your daughter by the hair and forced her out of the house one day after she had a C-section. Philip, you couldn't even look at your own daughter or granddaughter. And Cheryl, you're gloating about getting a room while your sister is in agony. He turned the camera to himself, his face grim. This is what happened to my wife and newborn daughter today. Her own family threw them out the day after surgery because her sister wanted the room. Turn that off, my mother shrieked, reaching for the phone again. Mitchell stepped back. No. This is going to everyone. Your friends, your church, your neighbors, your coworkers. Everyone is going to know what kind of people you really are. You can't do that, Cheryl said, her face suddenly pale with panic. Watch me, Mitchell said, typing furiously on his phone. I'm posting this to Facebook right now. I'm tagging all of you, and I'm sending it to everyone I know. My mother went sheet white. Mitchell, please. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, he said, his voice cold and hard. You chose your golden child over your daughter who just had surgery. You physically assaulted her when she asked for basic human decency. And now you're going to face the consequences. He finished typing and looked up at them, a chilling smile on his face. It's done. I posted it to Facebook, Instagram, and I'm sending it to your church group, your book club, and every single person in your contacts. The room erupted into absolute chaos. My mother started wailing, my father started yelling, and Cheryl was frantically trying to grab Mitchell's phone. You've ruined us, my mother cried. No, Mitchell said calmly, turning towards the door. You ruined yourselves. I just made sure everyone knows who you really are. He paused at the doorway, then turned back, his gaze sweeping over them one last time. Oh, and one more thing. Wendy's inheritance from her grandmother? The $50,000 she was planning to use for Paige's college fund? She's withdrawing it all. You'll never see a penny of it. My mother's face went from pale to ashen. She'd been counting on that money for their retirement. Grandma Violet had left it to me specifically, but it was in a trust my parents had been managing. She can't do that, my father said weakly. She can and she will, Mitchell stated, his voice ringing with authority. I've already spoken to the lawyer. The money is Wendy's and she's old enough to claim it. He smiled coldly. Goodbye. Don't ever contact us again. He left them standing there in shock, their world crumbling around them, and came back to the car where I was waiting. What did you do? I asked as he got in, still reeling. I made sure everyone knows what they did to you, he said, pulling away from the curb. And I made sure they'll face consequences for it. As we drove away, I could see my mother standing in the doorway crying. For a moment, a fleeting second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The next few hours were a blur. Mitchell took me to the hospital to check my incision. Thankfully, it was just severely strained, not torn. We then checked into a hotel for the night. I simply couldn't face the stairs or my own home just yet. At the hotel, cradling Paige, I finally had a moment to breathe, to process. I sat in the bathroom, staring at my reflection. My hair disheveled from where my mother had grabbed it, my eyes red and swollen. I looked like I'd been through hell. Because I had. Paige slept peacefully in her portable crib, completely oblivious to the chaos surrounding her entry into the world. I watched her tiny chest rise and fall, and a fierce, unwavering protectiveness washed over me. No one would ever treat her the way my family had treated me. I would make sure of that. Meanwhile, Mitchell was on his laptop, monitoring the responses to his video. Wendy, you need to see this, he said quietly. I walked over and looked at the screen. The video had been shared dozens of times in just the first few hours, and the comments were pouring in. But it wasn't just strangers. People from our town, people who knew my family, were expressing their shock and disgust. My old high school teacher, Mrs. Henderson, had written, I taught Wendy in my English class. She was one of the kindest, most respectful students I ever had. This breaks my heart. No mother should treat her child this way, especially after surgery. Mitchell's coworker Mike commented, Dude, I can't believe this is your wife's family. What kind of monsters do this to their own daughter? But the comment that hit me hardest was from Rachel, my childhood friend. "Wendy, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I remember how your parents always favored Cheryl, but I never thought they'd stoop this low. You deserve so much better." Reading those comments, a chilling realization dawned on me. Other people had noticed the favoritism too. It wasn't just in my head. The patterns of emotional abuse and neglect that I'd normalized growing up were visible to everyone around us. The truth in all its ugly glory was out. By the way, if you're still with me and finding this story unbelievable, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, I have more wild and powerful stories coming, and you don't want to miss them. Mitchell's video was going viral, not internet viral, but viral within our community. By evening, it had been shared hundreds of times. The comments were brutal. "This is absolutely disgusting. Who throws out their daughter after surgery? I would never speak to my parents again if they did this to me. That poor girl. I can't believe her own family would do this. This is child abuse. She just had a baby." Mitchell showed me his phone. "Look at this, Wendy. Your mother's friend Janet from the book club commented." I read Janet's comment. "Suzanne, I am absolutely appalled by your behavior. How could you do this to your own daughter? I don't even know who you are anymore. Don't bother coming to book club next week. You're no longer welcome." Similar comments were appearing from other people who knew my parents. My father's golf buddy Steve had written, "Philip, this is disgusting. I thought I knew you, but apparently I was wrong. Don't expect to see me at the club anymore." The speed at which their social circle was turning against them was shocking. Within hours, decades of friendships were being destroyed by a single video that simply showed the truth of who they really were. Mitchell's phone kept buzzing with notifications. More shares, more comments, more people expressing their outrage. He showed me a screenshot of my mother's Facebook page. She'd posted a status update. "Please stop sharing that video. You don't know the whole story." The responses to her post were even more brutal. Person after person was calling her out, expressing their disgust and demanding to know what possible justification there could be for throwing out a daughter after surgery. My Aunt Fia, my mother's own sister, had commented, "Suzanne, I watched that video 3 times trying to understand how you could do this to Wendy. There is no whole story that justifies this behavior. I'm ashamed to call you my sister." That comment particularly stunned me because Fia had always been so close to my mother. If she was turning against her, it meant the damage was even worse than I'd realized. Mitchell showed me another comment thread where people were discussing my parents' history of favoritism. Apparently, it had been obvious to everyone in town for years. I remember at Wendy's high school graduation, her parents barely clapped for her, but gave Cheryl a standing ovation when she won some minor award at the middle school ceremony the same week, wrote Mrs. Robbins, a family friend. When Wendy got married, Suzanne spent the whole reception talking about Cheryl's upcoming engagement instead of celebrating her older daughter, added someone else. The pattern was clear to everyone who had been paying attention. My parents had been emotionally abusing me for years, and the video had finally exposed it to the world. But the real bombshell came around midnight. Mitchell's phone rang, and it was Gregory, Cheryl's husband. "Mitchell, I need to talk to you," Gregory said, his voice strained. "Can you meet me somewhere? I can't do this over the phone." We arranged to meet at a 24-hour diner across town. Gregory looked utterly terrible when he arrived, like he hadn't slept in days. He ordered coffee and sat across from us in the booth, his eyes darting nervously. "I need to tell you something," he began, his voice barely a whisper. "Cheryl didn't just decide to come over yesterday. She planned this." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "She's been insanely jealous of you throughout your entire pregnancy," Gregory explained, his gaze fixed on his coffee cup. "She kept saying how you were getting all the attention, how your parents were more excited about Paige than they were about Jaden when he was born 6 weeks ago. She was furious about it. When you went into labor, she called your parents and told them she was struggling with postpartum depression and needed their help. She specifically asked them to give her your room." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, the air knocked out of me. She planned this? She planned to kick me out after surgery? She said it would teach you a lesson about not being the center of attention, Gregory added, his voice heavy with shame. She thought it would be funny to see you have to leave. Mitchell's face was turning a furious shade of red. She thought it would be funny to force a woman who just had surgery out of her parents' house. "I'm so sorry," Gregory said, shaking his head. "I had no idea how bad it was until I saw that video. When I got home and confronted her about it, she just laughed. She actually laughed and said, 'You deserved it for being dramatic.'" This revelation changed everything. It wasn't just favoritism or poor judgment anymore. It was calculated, malicious cruelty. My sister had deliberately orchestrated my humiliation and pain. "There's more," Gregory added quietly, almost as an afterthought. "She's been having an affair with her boss at the marketing firm. It started about a year ago, before Jaden was even born. I found out tonight." The hits just kept coming. My sister wasn't just cruel. She was a cheater and a liar. "I'm filing for divorce," Gregory continued, his voice firming. "And I'm going to make sure I get full custody of Jaden. I don't want him growing up thinking this kind of behavior is normal." We talked for another hour, Gregory sharing more shocking details about Cheryl's manipulative behavior and my parents' involvement in the twisted plan. Apparently, they'd all discussed it beforehand, agreeing that I was too needy and needed to learn independence. The next morning, armed with this explosive new information, Mitchell made another video. This one was even more detailed, explaining the premeditated nature of what had happened. He included screenshots of text messages that Gregory had provided, showing Cheryl bragging to her friends about her sinister plan to kick me out. This second video was even more damaging than the first. The revelation that it had been planned, that it was a deliberate act of cruelty, made my family look like absolute monsters. People were calling them psychopaths, sociopaths, and worse. My parents' remaining friends stopped calling. My mother's book club officially expelled her. My father's golf buddies stopped talking to him entirely. It would be months before their church took any official action, but Pastor Murphy called my parents the very next morning. Apparently, several congregation members had seen the video and were appalled. He wanted to meet with them about their unchristian behavior. My mother called me sobbing. "Wendy, please. You have to get Mitchell to take down that video. We're being destroyed." "Good," I said, my voice cold, the pain still fresh. "You destroyed me first." "But we're your parents," she wailed. "No," I retorted. "Parents don't throw their children out after surgery. Parents don't grab their daughter's hair and force them out of the house. You're strangers to me now." She was inconsolable. "Please, honey. We made a mistake. We're sorry." "Are you sorry?" I asked, my voice cutting through her sobs. "Or are you sorry you got caught?" There was a long, painful silence. "We're sorry we got caught," she whispered. At least she was honest. The real reckoning came 3 days later. I went to the lawyer's office to officially claim my inheritance. Mr. Novak, the family lawyer, was utterly disgusted when he heard what happened. "Your grandmother would be rolling in her grave," he said grimly. "She specifically left this money to you because she knew you'd need it someday. She never trusted your parents with money." I signed the papers, and the $50,000 was transferred to an account my parents couldn't access. It was money I planned to use for Paige's future. But now I knew I needed it to protect her from my toxic family. But the financial hit wasn't the worst part for my parents. The social exile was destroying them. My mother had to quit her job at the elementary school because parents were complaining about her being around children. The school board had received dozens of calls after the video went viral, with parents expressing deep concern about having someone who would treat their own daughter so cruelly working with their kids. "How can we trust her with our children if she can't even be kind to her own daughter?" one parent had written to the superintendent. The principal, Dr. Lawson, had called my mother into his office 3 days after the video was posted. Several parents had even provided him with printed copies of the video and the comment threads demanding action. "Suzanne, I'm going to be direct with you," Dr. Lawson had said. "The school board has decided that it's best if you resign. The community has lost faith in your character, and we can't have that kind of negativity affecting our school environment." My mother had tried to defend herself, claiming the video was taken out of context, but Dr. Lawson wasn't buying it. "I've watched the video multiple times, Suzanne. I've read the comments from people who know your family. This isn't an isolated incident. This is a pattern of behavior, and the community has spoken." When my mother refused to resign, they fired her after 15 years of working at the school. She was terminated for conduct unbecoming of an educator. The local newspaper even picked up the story. The headline read, "Local elementary school teacher fired after video shows her abusing daughter post-surgery." The article included quotes from parents and community members expressing their outrage. My father lost 2 major clients for his accounting business because they didn't want to work with someone who would treat their own daughter that way. But the real blow came when his biggest client, Shelton Manufacturing, terminated their contract. Mr. Shelton had been my father's client for over a decade, representing nearly 40% of his business income. When the video surfaced, Mr. Shelton's daughter-in-law had seen it and was horrified. "My father-in-law called me personally," Mitchell told me after speaking with someone who worked at Shelton Manufacturing. He said he couldn't continue working with someone who would treat his own child that way. He said it showed a fundamental lack of character and compassion. The Shelton Manufacturing contract had been worth $80,000 annually to my father's small accounting firm. Losing it meant he'd have to lay off his only employee and potentially lose his office space. But the consequences kept mounting. My parents' mortgage company somehow got wind of the situation when a video clip was shared in a local Facebook group that included several of their employees. The company's HR department decided that my father's public behavior reflected poorly on their corporate image and terminated their business relationship. My parents had been with the same mortgage company for 20 years, and suddenly they were scrambling to find new financing. In the midst of all the social and professional fallout, they were facing potential foreclosure. The stress was taking a physical toll on both of them. My mother developed stress-related eczema that covered her arms and face. My father started having panic attacks and had to be hospitalized twice for what he thought were heart attacks but turned out to be severe anxiety. Their marriage, already strained by years of dysfunction, began cracking under the pressure. My mother blamed my father for not standing up for me, screaming that his lack of action had made her look even worse in the video. "You just sat there like a coward," she shrieked at him during one of their fights that the neighbors reported hearing. "You didn't even try to stop me. Now everyone thinks we're both monsters." My father, meanwhile, blamed my mother for being too harsh and creating the entire situation. "You're the one who grabbed her hair," he yelled back. "You're the one who threw out our daughter. I was just trying to stay out of it." Neither of them seemed to grasp that they were both equally culpable. Neither of them had shown me any kindness or support when I needed it most. The final straw for their marriage came when my mother's sister, Fia, called and uninvited them from her daughter's wedding. The wedding was supposed to be in 2 months, and my parents had been looking forward to it for over a year. "I can't have you there, Suzanne," Fia had said, her voice firm. "My daughter doesn't want the drama, and frankly, I'm embarrassed to be related to you right now. What you did to Wendy was unforgivable." This devastated my mother because Fia's daughter Paige, yes, she was named after me, had always been close to her. The idea that she was being excluded from major family events made her realize how completely she destroyed her reputation. Cheryl was having her own problems. Her friends had seen the video and were horrified. Several people had commented about how she'd acted, calling her cruel and heartless. Her husband, Gregory, was mortified and made her write a public apology, which she posted on Facebook. But Cheryl's troubles were just beginning. Her boss at the marketing firm, the very man she'd been having an affair with, decided to end their relationship after seeing the video. He was married with children and couldn't risk being associated with someone who had such a negative public image. "I can't be seen with you anymore," he told her. "My wife saw that video and she's furious. She knows we've been working late together, and now she's suspicious. I can't afford to have my marriage scrutinized because of your family drama." Cheryl was devastated. She'd been planning to leave Gregory for this man, thinking he'd divorce his wife and they'd start a new life together. Instead, he cut her off completely and was avoiding her at work. The affair revelation came out during Gregory's divorce proceedings. His lawyer had hired a private investigator who easily uncovered the relationship. Cheryl's cruel behavior in the video, combined with her blatant infidelity, made it easy for Gregory to get everything he wanted in the divorce. The judge who handled their case had actually seen the video because his wife had shared it on Facebook. During the custody hearing, he referenced Cheryl's behavior toward me as evidence of her poor character and judgment. "Mrs. Robbins," the judge had said, "I've reviewed the evidence of your extramarital affair, But I'm equally concerned about the video that shows your treatment of your sister after she'd undergone surgery. This demonstrates a pattern of callous and cruel behavior that raises serious questions about your fitness as a parent. Cheryl lost primary custody of Jaden and was ordered to pay child support. She was also required to attend parenting classes and anger management counseling. The judge's ruling was scathing, referencing her calculated cruelty and lack of empathy. Gregory kept his word. He got custody of Jaden and brings him to visit Paige regularly. The kids are growing up as friends, which is what I always wanted. 6 months later, the dust has settled, and the consequences for my family are staggering. My mother, Suzanne, is living with her sister in Arizona, working as a cashier at a grocery store, a far cry from her teaching career. She lost all her friends and had to start over at 58. Her sister, Fie, who reluctantly offered a place to stay, makes it clear daily that she disapproves of my mother's actions. I can't look at you the same way, Fie told her. Every time I see you, I think about what you did to Wendy. How could you be so cruel to your own child? My mother's health has deteriorated dramatically. She's developed high blood pressure and chronic insomnia, looking more like 70 than 58, constantly fearing someone will recognize her from the video. My father, Philip, is living in a rundown one-bedroom apartment across town. His accounting business failed, and he's now working as a bookkeeper for a small auto parts store, earning less than half his previous salary with no benefits. He's developed a severe drinking problem, arrested twice for drunk driving, and lost his license. The man who used to drive a luxury car now takes the bus, a shell of his former self. Cheryl is living in a rough trailer park with an unemployed, emotionally and physically abusive boyfriend she met at a bar. She lost primary custody of Jaden and only gets supervised visitation every other weekend at a family center. Jaden, now 7 months old, barely knows her, often crying and reaching for Gregory when he arrives for pickup. The social workers note her self-centeredness. Gregory, on the other hand, remarried a wonderful pediatric nurse named Kelly, who treats Jaden like her own son. They're happy and Jaden is thriving, growing up with love and stability. The 4 of us, Gregory, Kelly, Jaden, and Paige, often have family dinners. It's the kind of loving, supportive environment I never had, and it makes me incredibly grateful for the family I've chosen. Mitchell and I are stronger than ever. What he did that day showed me what real love looks like. He didn't just comfort me. He fought for me, ensuring my family faced true consequences. Paige is now 6 months old, the absolute light of our lives. She'll never know her grandparents or aunt, but she's surrounded by love from Mitchell's family and our chosen circle of friends. The video is still up on social media. Mitchell refuses to take it down, and honestly, I don't want him to. It serves as a reminder of what happened and a warning to others about who my biological family truly is. People often ask me if I feel bad about what happened to my parents and Cheryl. The truth is, I don't. They made their choices and they have to live with the consequences. They could have been kind, supportive, and loving. Instead, they chose cruelty, and now they are reaping what they sowed. The best part is that Paige will grow up knowing she's loved and protected. She'll never experience the favoritism and conditional love that I grew up with. She'll never wonder if she's good enough or if her parents truly love her. Mitchell and I are planning to move to another state next year. A fresh start away from all the drama and toxic people. Using part of my inheritance as a down payment on a house where Paige can grow up happy and secure. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my parents had just been kind to me that day. If they had helped me recover and welcome their granddaughter with love, we could have had a relationship. Paige could have had grandparents who loved her. But that's not what they chose. They chose Cheryl over me like they always had. They chose cruelty over kindness. And now they're living with the consequences of those choices. The last time I saw my mother, she was at the grocery store where she works. She looked older, sadder, and completely broken. She saw me with Paige and started crying. "Please," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at her for a long, quiet moment. "I know you are," I said, my voice steady. "But sorry doesn't undo what you did. Sorry doesn't give me back the first week of my daughter's life. Sorry doesn't heal the trauma you caused." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. I miss you. I miss Paige." "Then you should have thought of that before you threw us out," I told her. "You made your choice. Now live with it." I walked away and never looked back. The truth is, I'm happier now than I've ever been. I'm free from toxic people who never truly loved me. I have a husband who would do anything for me and a daughter who will grow up knowing she's cherished and unconditionally loved. What would you have done if your own family turned their back on you like this? And how did you find the strength to move forward? Let me know in the comments below. I truly want to hear your thoughts.